Shawn Michaels is undoubtedly one of the best ever to step foot in the squared circle, but he's also one of the most controversial people to do so. Michaels has had his fair share of real life and kayfabe betrayals, but we'll be mostly looking at the kayfabe ones in this video. So the following are the top 10 betrayals of the Heartbreak Kid during his illustrious career. At number 10 we've got Booker T. After a hiatus of 18 months from the WWE, Shawn Michaels returned to the company as part of the newly formed NWO under Kevin Nash. Michaels took a leading role in the group and would eventually kick out Booker T from the group literally. Michaels called Booker the problem and did this as he stood out from the rest of the group. Thankfully this was a blessing for Booker and the fans as we got to see his hilarious tag team with Goldust, while the NWO disbanded quietly. At number 9 we've got John Cena. John Cena's been betrayed countless times during his 2 decades in the wrestling business. Naturally, HBK also got the honour of turning on him during their feud in 2007. The two were feuding for Cena's WWE title, but they became unlikely partners and won the World Tag titles from Rated RKO. After Cena defeated Michaels at WrestleMania 23, the two had to defend their tag championships the next night on Raw in 2 10-team battle royals. Despite the momentous task, they were doing well until Michaels turned on Cena and threw him over the top rope. Both were eliminated and the Hardy Boys would emerge victorious. Both men were babyfaces, but this didn't affect Michaels' reaction from the fans. Maybe because they didn't want Big Match John to hold 2 titles simultaneously. Cena would hold the belt for a couple more months until he had to give it up due to injury, and then Randy Orton would take the belt and Michaels would have a rivalry with him. At number 8, we've got Daniel Bryan. Shawn Michaels retired in a breathtaking matchup at WrestleMania in 2010. However, he still made several appearances from time to time, which included being special guest ref for some important bouts. One of his officiating duties came at Hell in a Cell in 2013, as he wore the striped shirt for the main event between Randy Orton and Daniel Bryan. The two faced off for the WWE Championship, and Michaels superkicked Bryan, allowing Orton to win the belt. This was the first time he had turned heel since 2005, and we're getting to that one, don't worry. Michaels explained the next night on Raw that he did what he did because of Bryan's disrespect towards Triple H. He'd be attacked by Bryan later on. Michaels wouldn't add anything else to his story later on though, and would return as a fan favourite the next time. And this was just a stepping stone for Bryan's historic win at WrestleMania 30. At number 7 we've got Triple H. Now D-Generation X have been one of the most memorable acts since the 90s all the way up to the PG era. Shawn Michaels and Triple H wreaked havoc on Raw, in a more family-friendly way of course. The two won the tag titles and unleashed many memorable segments, and they also faced John Cena in a triple threat match at Survivor Series 2009. The two entered the main event together in a display of solidarity with one another. They also stood facing off against Cena together before the bell had rung. As soon as the match started, Michaels superkicked Hunter to lay him out. Cena looked in disbelief, while the crowd popped for the big moment. Michael Cole rightly described the moment as vintage Shawn Michaels. Trips would later take control of the match, until Cena overpowered them both and retained the title. At number 6 we've got The Undertaker, and Michaels is known as Mr. WrestleMania, and for good reason. He always steals the show. Michaels' 2 best matches are his duology with The Undertaker. For the second one, at WrestleMania 26, he was completely desperate. He wanted to beat the Dead Man, ending his legendary undefeated streak, and take his World Heavyweight title. It was the perfect plan, but HBK couldn't win Royal Rumble 2010, nor could he qualify for the Elimination Chamber in which Taker was defending the belt. So during the Chamber matchup, he cost Taker the belt by superkicking him. Taker decided to give him his desired matchup at WrestleMania, but wanted Michaels to put his career on the line. Michaels agreed, and they put on arguably the greatest bout in the history of the show. Before we get to number 5, like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video, and let me know who we've missed off this list, because there's bound to be one. At number 5 we've got DX. Now this was quite a shock for all the hardcore DX fans back in the day. Michaels was the commissioner of Raw, a position he had taken following his retirement from in-ring competition post WrestleMania 14. HBK would be a fan favourite as he always did what was right. All of this changed during a match between the rising star and corporate champion The Rock facing off against DX's X-Pac. As the Great One was defending his WWE title, he brought in a steel chair, which was snatched away by the commissioner to the cheers of the crowd. However, he'd take the liberty of hitting X-Pac with the chair himself, with Rock keeping the belt. This was followed by an iconic shot of him, the McMahons, and HBK crotch-chopping X-Pac. Michaels would become a valuable part of Vince McMahon's corporation, and would misuse his authority for the remainder of the year. He'd then rejoin DX as a babyface and all was forgiven and forgotten, because That's wrestling. At number 4, we've got Diesel. Michaels had become a star by 1994 as part of the WWE's new generation. He was accompanied by his real-life friend and muscle Big Daddy Cool Diesel, and the two had a lot of success as a heel tag team, winning the tag titles and Diesel also keeping the Intercontinental Championship. During a matchup with another real-life friend of the two, Razor Ramon, HBK accidentally superkicked Diesel, costing him his IC title. While he looked apologetic back then, Michaels would later go on to say that he made that guy, replacing him with Sid. After Michaels won the 1995 Royal Rumble, he'd go on to face Diesel for the latter's new WWE Championship at WrestleMania. He'd lose and go on a hiatus to return as Vinnie Mac wanted him to return as a fan favourite. Michaels would go on to win the WWE title belt from Bret the Hitman Hart the next WrestleMania in their classic 60-minute Iron Man thriller, becoming the face of the company. Meanwhile, Diesel would leave WCW alongside Razor Ramon, forming the NWO to change the face of wrestling history forever. At number 3, we've got Hulk Hogan. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? You get Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan at SummerSlam 2005, of course. But how do we get here? Well, Michaels was feuding with Muhammad Hassan and Daivari, like pretty much everyone else in the locker room at the time, and wanted to face them in a handicap match. However, Raw GM Eric Bischoff told Michaels to find a partner, offering him a tag team match against them. Michaels went to the Hulkster and would eventually convince him to team up against the two at Backlash. The two icons won the match and would become rivals a couple of months later as Michaels superkicked Hogan after successfully teaming up with him in another tag team match. Michaels challenged the Immortal One to a match at SummerSlam, which he accepted. During the match, Michaels comically oversold everything that Hulk threw at him. Hogan would win the match, but Michaels being thrown about like a rag doll is what makes this bout memorable. The reason for Shawn's antics is that the original plan was for a series of 3 matches, with Michaels winning at least one. However, Hogan apparently refused to do this, so Michaels' ego got the better of him. At number 2, we've got Bret Hart. This one needs no introduction, as it's one of the most important moments in all of wrestling. Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart have had arguably the greatest rivalry in wrestling history. It was iconic from start to finish, with the latter happening at Survivor Series 1997. Titled as the Montreal Screwjob, this betrayal had more to do with Vince McMahon than Michaels. Michaels was one of the select few people who knew about what was going to transpire, making this more of a real-life betrayal than kayfabe. As Michaels got Bret in the sharpshooter, Vince made his way to the ring and told the referee to ring the bell, despite Bret not submitting. This ensured that Bret wouldn't take the WWE title to WCW with him, as his contract had expired. The aftermath was a heated moment, as the crowd was absolutely livid. Bret spat on Vince and then punched him backstage. Vince took the heat on himself, while Michaels denied being aware of the screwjob back then. Vince would then use the heat from the incident to transform his character into the villainous Mr. McMahon, changing the course of the Monday Night Wars and triggering the Attitude Era. And finally, at number 1, we've got Marty Janetti. The biggest betrayal in Shawn Michaels' career is the very first one, the incident at the barbershop in 1992. The Rockers, a team of Michaels and Marty Janetti, were one of the most exciting acts in the indies back in the 80s, and then in WWE during the early 90s. However, the WWE saw it fit to break them up and launch Michaels as the Heartbreak Kid, a cocky singles star. To do this, the Rockers were hosted by Brutus Beefcake at his barbershop show. There was some tension between the Rockers, but cooler heads prevailed as they hugged each other. However, Michaels superkicked Janetti and threw him through a glass window of the set. Or in the iconic words of the legendary Bobby Heenan, Janetti tried to dive through the window to escape. What an act of cowardice. After this, Michaels would become one of the greatest superstars of all time and would betray many others, but this is where it all began. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe and click here for another. And if you want to support us further and become one of the dogs yourself, join our Patreon using the link in the description. You'll get exclusive benefits, become part of our private community, and much more. Nice one.